Hi everyone, it's me, Charlene, back with another Tuesday Talks. I hope you're having a good day. It's frigid in Michigan. It's kind of cold out there today, but I don't really mind it. Maybe because it's the first cold day we've had. But anyway, Tuesday Talks. So last week, I had a really good week and I had the opportunity to be a part of a community presentation about how to lower blood pressure naturally. It was a panel discussion with me and two other, I'm not a doctor, but they were doctors. Talking about various things that we could do. And of course, my portion was all about herbal ways to address it. So today I kind of wanted to talk about that, but not the herbal part because, it was an hour and a half presentation. And so I could never cram all of the, things that you can do to lower your blood pressure naturally in a brief Tuesday Talks. But I wanted to talk about 3 things that you can do that you may never have thought of and might seem kind of unusual to you. So the first one is, well, first I'm going to ask you, you can answer me back, but what happened about 100 and, 10 years ago in this country to our food industry that it looks like has a direct link to high blood pressure rates? Can you guess? Okay, anyway. Well, we had a drastic change in the way we process flour. So now, if you go to the market and you get flour, of course, mostly it's always this fine white, powdery white flour. And that's the flour, that's what we think of flour when we think of flour. But before white flour became popular and we learned how to process it the way we process it, all of our flour was whole wheat flour. And so it had the little kernel around the wheat still on it. And that made the flour kind of gritty, and it was coarser, and it was a darker texture. And of course, it had a lot more fiber in it. But this manufacturing process that turns the whole wheat flour, into this very fine, powdery, pristine white flour makes it, basically, it's a better profit. It's better profit margins because it's shelf stable for longer. And they say it's cheaper, which doesn't make sense. I don't understand how it's cheaper when you have to process it more. But it's cheaper, and it is used in everything now. And I guess it lasts longer. Supposedly it doesn't spoil. So now most everything that we use flour in is this white flour. Well, that takes away half of what we need and most of the fiber. So white flour, not good for you. Haven't really been eating it in human time periods until very, very recently. And because we don't get the whole wheat, we have way less fiber than we should in our diet. Between that and the canning industry, I'm not really sure what the canning industry has to do with the fact that we're not getting a lot of fiber, but that was mentioned as well. Those 2 things mean that we're kind of fiber deficient. So one of the things you can do to help lower blood pressure naturally is get a way more fiber in your diet. And whenever you have a choice between white bread or white flour or white pasta, choose the whole wheat option. Studies show that if you eat less than 12 grams of fiber a day, then your risk of high blood pressure skyrockets, or that there's 60% greater, you have to be very careful with statistics, there's 60% greater risk of having high blood pressure if you eat less than 12 grams of fiber a day compared with those who eat 12 grams of fiber or more per day. So that's the key. It's interesting. You could eat 11 grams and you are high risk. You can eat 12 or 13 and suddenly your risk plummets. So we need a lot more fiber in our diet. The other thing I learned, I had no idea, is that even little things like the way you prepare your food makes a big difference. So let's say you're making this beautiful salad and you shred the carrots. That kind of ruins the fiber content. It's better to have like sliced carrots or carrots with their skin on. And the same with cooking, like cooking them lightly, chopping them instead of shredding or mashing Your vegetables keeps the fiber content high and lowers your risk of high blood pressure. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing that was interesting is that talking and being a very talkative person actually is linked to high blood pressure. So, of course, we kind of all know this, that there's like, they say there's like a high blood pressure personality. So that's someone who is like very aggressive, kind of easily frustrated, easily angered, competitive, fast moving, dynamic. That's a high blood pressure personality type. So there is this doctor named Dr. Lynch. He was doing, I think he was at Maryland's medical school, and he was doing a lot of studies. And he found that it was a very small study. It was a study of only about 200 people, but 98% of those people, when they started talking, their blood pressure surged. And this wasn't even like public speaking. It's just that there is a link between talking and your blood pressure going up. And then he also found there was more studies that people who tend to like talk very quickly, talk loudly, use a lot of hand expressions, who are very expressive, who talk over people, who interrupt people, who are talking a mile a minute, they tend to have higher blood pressure. And so the study showed that those who listen more, and it's not just not talking. That was interesting because they did multiple studies. It was also listening, and because you can not be talking, but you're still not paying attention to the other person, or you're not listening. And they also found that people who tend to have chronic high blood pressure are people who talk a lot and who don't necessarily listen. Even when they're in a conversation, they are kind of like talking at people or thinking about what they're going to say. But listening, doing more listening and more meditation and talking more slowly and taking big, deep breaths as you speak, all of those things tend to lower blood pressure. Who knew? And the funny thing is, so I would say that when I was younger, I was very shy and insular and quite a bookworm. And even like into my 20s, I wasn't, I talked to my friends, I wasn't like super talkative. But something happened around 30, and I think I also started seeing things differently and started getting very, very upset about a lot of things that go on in our world and our society. And I always had very low blood pressure. Like sometimes the doctor would even talk about like, oh, very low blood pressure. Guess what? I'm much more talkative. I'm much more reactive. I'm much more like, I'm upset about this. And guess what? My blood pressure is quite a bit higher than it was several years ago. So there's something to this talking a lot thing. Talking less, lower blood pressure. Okay, so then the third thing. The third thing is getting a pet, especially a dog. Okay, so this may be a stretch. The reason why I say getting a pet, especially a dog, lowers your blood pressure is because there's lots of studies that show that if you have a heart event, like a heart attack or something like that, those people who come home to a pet, a dog specifically, do much, much better as far as recovery, longevity, and getting over the hump of having a heart attack. They even do better than someone who comes home to a spouse or a partner. So someone who comes home just to their loving dog recovers more quickly and has a better recovery and more likely to recover from a heart attack than someone who comes home to a loving family. Isn't that interesting? So I've concluded that pets also lower your blood pressure. And actually that makes sense because guess what a dog provides? It provides touch. It provides unconditional love. It provides typically like you have to be on a routine and a schedule. You have to go take the dog out for walking and exercise and things like that. So I guess it's animal connection. Well, humans are animals. So animal connection, unconditional love, touch, having a reason to live, all of these things are really good for your heart and also good for your blood pressure. So that's my quick 3 things you can do naturally. More fiber, more fiber, more fiber. We all need more fiber. More fiber, more whole wheat, more broccoli, more kale. Less talking, at least less angry talking, and less talking over people, and less being high strung. More deep breathing and interacting calmly with each other. Being less combative. That lowers your blood pressure. And also, having a human, or not a human friend. Well, no, having a human friend is good, but having a pet, having a dog. There's so many more things that you can do to lower your blood pressure naturally. This topic actually came up because recently I saw a whole bunch of articles talking about how during the pandemic, Americans' blood pressure has steadily been rising, which that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. I mean, the whole world has been under chronic stress and anxiety. That's not good for high blood pressure. But the thing about high blood pressure that makes it especially insidious is that there really isn't any warning signs, especially in the beginning stages. So it's just something that you naturally have to keep, as you get older, keep an eye on. We all should be doing mindfulness or meditative things or self-care things or preventative things for our health. These go a long way towards keeping our blood pressure at a healthy level. And so that's all I have today for Tuesday Talks. I hope you're having a good fall. See you next week. Bye.